Okay. It is Wednesday, October 18th. I am now calling the Hollis Brookline Cooperative School Board meeting to order at 6 o'clock on the dot. I am Holly Durlow Babcock, Chair of the Hollis Brookline School Board. I'm going to start at the end and have people introduce themselves quickly, please, starting with Mr. Solon.
I am Mr. Solon, Tom Solon.
Great, thank you.
Hi, Linda Sherwood, Director of Business Operations.
Great.
Krista Whalen.
Carol Tyler, Director of Technology.
Andy Corey, School Superintendent.
Rob Mann,
Rob Mann, School Board.
School Board.
Cindy Vancona.
Brian Bumpus, Athletic Director.
Patrick West, Principal of Middle School.
Gracie Dortona, Student Body President.
Thank you. Tim Grisone, our high school principal, will be joining us shortly. He's at National Honor Society induction, and Gina Bergskog, our Assistant Superintendent of Schools, will also be joining us shortly. She is also in attendance there. And Beth Williams, School Board member, will be joining us. She's running a little bit late, and Kate Stoll is absent tonight. So, so at this point, I'm going to ask for any agenda adjustments. I believe we have one. We're going to go ahead, Andy.
One, I'm just going to ask for a little flexibility depending on how National Honor Society goes. We might have to just juggle around one or two things for Gina and Tim while they're on their way back. And then two, the agenda adjustment is we'll add a non-meeting after we adjourn, and that non-meeting will be to discuss negotiations.
Right, thank you. Great, and so then we'll move on to, is that okay with everybody? I should ask. Seeing no further comments, I would like to move forward to resignations
Yep.
and correspondence.
I have two resignations. The first one is from the middle school. It is with sadness that I'm writing to inform you that I am resigning my position as a school psychologist for Hollis Brookline Middle School, with my last day being November 21st, 2023. This has not been an easy decision to make, but after careful consideration, I realize that I need to focus on my personal and health concerns at this time. I have really enjoyed working with such a supportive administrative team and admire the work you are doing for the school community. During my last weeks at the school, I will do everything possible to wrap up my duties and assist other team members with the transition in order to make this as easy as possible. Please let me know if there's anything else I can do to help with this process. And that is from Caroline Silver, and it is supported by the administration.
Okay, so I need a motion to accept the resignation of Caroline Silva, effective, what was the date?
November 21st, 2023.
Effective November 21st, 2023, as a school psychologist. I need a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Krista,
Second.
second by Cindy. Any comments? All in favor? 5-0.
The next one is from the high school. This is effective the end of the year. I am writing to inform you that I will be resigning at the end of the 23-24 school year, as my husband has accepted a new position and we will be moving to California. I wanted to let you know I did not take this decision lightly, as I have greatly enjoyed my time serving the Hollis Brookline High School community as a school counselor. I want to show my gratitude for giving me such a positive experience these past 3 years. I will dearly miss working with the staff and students at Hollis Brookline High School. Please let me know how I can help during the transition. I look forward to the remainder of the school year, and that's from Emily Thompson.
Okay, so I need a motion to accept the resignation of Emily Thompson, effective at the end of the 23-24 school year.
So moved.
Moved by Krista,
Second.
second by Cindy. Any comment? I appreciate the
What's her position?
school counselor.
Okay.
I appreciate the early notice.
Yeah.
All those in favor? 5-0. Motion carries.
That is it for the,
Okay, also, I never appointed a process observer, and I think that is Cindy's turn this time. Yeah, I noticed that in the outline. I can't find it now, but I thought I saw it somewhere. So, great. Thank you, Cindy. All right, so at this point, we need to move forward. Is that all you have?
yep.
Oh, great. Okay, so moving forward to minutes. Approval of minutes from September 20th. So we have a set of minutes from September 20th, 2023, regular Hollis Brookline School Board minutes. Couple of amendments, page 8, line 40, replace given with give, and page 10, line 13, replace the comma with a period following decision. I need a motion to accept as amended.
So moved.
Moved by Cindy, I need a second.
Second.
Second by Krista. All those in favor? Is Tom raising his hand? Are you accepting the minutes? Okay, so that's 5-0. And then for the non-public, I need a motion to accept as presented for the non-public on September 20th, 2023.
So moved.
Moved by Krista,
Second.
second by Cindy. There's no amendment, so all those in favor? 5-0. Okay, moving forward. Let's just keep moving along. Am I on time here or too early?
You're okay.
I'm okay. I'm going to open the floor for public input. At this point in the meeting, we open the floor for public input from residents to, if a resident were to come up, they need to state their name and address for the record. We ask that input be focused on the agenda. We keep the floor open for 30 minutes. If someone were to come in during this meeting, we would allow them to speak if they come in during the 30-minute period. So we're going to keep the floor open from 6:07 to 6:37, and I'm opening the floor, but we will move on during our meeting to continue our business. So I'm opening the floor for public input now at 6:07. And seeing none, we're going to move on with our meeting. Okay. So, I need to breathe because I feel like I've been talking like that.
I'm just gonna set up.
At this point, we're going to go to our presentation, which for some reason this doesn't make a difference, but okay. Technology presentation by Carol Tyler.
Yes. I'll just send you.
Thank you. But it's not on this one that I printed out today.
I get all that.
Should be the next one down, it's missing.
Yeah, it's not on that one, right. It's on here, but you know what, she sent this to us as a hard, yeah, maybe, or the second one. It must have been, yeah, so it's okay. It doesn't matter. It's fine. Should we hit some? Brian, do you want to hit some lights for us? Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll figure it out, I'm sure.
I'm just gonna present it this way. I think it's gonna be easier. All right, so, good evening, everyone.
Those were actually all the lights I didn't want to hit.
I'm here
There
to
we go.
present our budgeting recommendations for our one-to-one student device initiative. I know that you received budget information in September that it included an expendable trust. We looked at our budget plan and have a new recommendation. So I just want to present the why we have a new recommendation and a little background. So as you know, we rolled out our one-to-one initiative, sorry about that, I have to get, in stages. So during the 21-22 school year, we provided a student device to anybody who requested one. Then at the start of the 22-23 school year, students in grades 1 through 12 were provided a school-issued device in school and at home. Many of these devices were purchased in 20 and 21. And then over the past 6 months, am I on the right side? Yeah, over the past 6 months, the team has been researching the best option to ensure a continued sustainable one-to-one device plan, since over the next 3 fiscal years, our entire fleet will need to be replaced. So why is the one-to-one device initiative important for schools? As we near 2024, digital resources and curriculum are becoming the norm and not just used as enhanced learning opportunities. More and more textbooks are moving to a completely online platform and making it essential for all students to have their own dedicated device. This year alone, in 7th grade, we have a completely online social studies curriculum. In addition to expanding these digital literacy skills, one-to-one devices enable teachers to create customized learning paths that can be delivered via digital platform, giving students a more personalized and effective learning experience. Some other advantages of a one-to-one device program, and SIU 41 in particular, is that we have our student Chromebooks are managed at the building level. We have building techs, and this gives students easy access to end-user support and any issues with those devices. Each building, as of 2022-23 school year, has their own dedicated Chromebook Wi-Fi network, which means that these devices connect seamlessly to that network. There's no login required, and those devices are the only devices on that network, making it secure, and also has its own set of firewall rules and filters in order to be SIPA compliant. We get our internet coverage through E-rate funding, which means that we have to follow the laws regarding student privacy and E-rate funds. In addition, all required testing is now delivered online, so we're required to have one device per student for any state testing on any given day. So looking to the future, we need to build a sustainable plan to get us not just through the next 3 years, but really through the next 10, 20, 30 years. So as of July 1st, our Chromebook inventory was 2,945. Of those devices, 435 will be at the end of their life in June 30 of 2024. And end of life means that no longer will they have updates pushed out. They're no longer available to be used for any sort of testing. So if we don't make any additional purchases between now and the future, as of June 2024, our devices will just be over 2,500. By July 1st of 2026, we'll have just over 800 devices for the entire district. And those numbers don't account for changes in our student enrollment or damaged, missing, or destroyed Chromebooks. So while we spent the last 6 to 8 months looking at some options for how we were going to get from our current inventory to a sustainable program and process for one-to-one, we looked at a lot of different considerations to figure into our budgeting plan. And number one was the need for a sustained level funding. As you know, a lot of those devices we bought previously were bought with emergency connectivity funds, and those funds are now gone. We also have wear and tear issues resulting from students carrying their Chromebooks to class 7 to 8 classes a day, and until this year, students at the middle school did not use backpacks. So that's a lot of wear and tear. Just for some stats on that, at the end of the 22-23 school year, we recycled 75 Chromebooks that could not be repaired, and those were not end of life. We had to throw them in the recycling. Well, a recycler comes and takes them away. They could not be repaired. In addition to that, we had 128 breakage reports, and these are things like water damage, broken screens, trackpad issues, that sort of thing. And then last school year, we purchased replacement parts for 80 screens, 50 trackpads, 24 keyboards and faceplates, and 20 batteries. So those are all considerations leading us to what is an actual end-of-life date for our devices versus what the end-of-life date is from the manufacturer. In addition to that, we had to look at staffing concerns because each new Chromebook requires about a 30-minute setup, and everything from unboxing the Chromebook, enrolling it, and then getting it in our inventory system and setting it up in the Google Admin Console. So based on those factors, we recommend a 4-year replacement cycle for all Chromebooks. For Hollis and Brookline, we could consider a 5-year cycle, but we need another year of data before we can make those decisions and look at our inventory levels at the end of June. In this plan, there's also the possibility for some revenue if we do have devices that are still in working condition. We estimate that we can get about $30 per device, and that's very conservative. So there is a trade-off between the revenue and the expense that's coming up. So this plan that you're looking at now does not really vary drastically from our current budget expenditures. If you look at FY24, we were purchasing 420 versus the 580 that we need to get to keep a sustained level. Any questions?
I think probably. Do we have questions? Maybe we should turn the lights back on and you can sit down and, want to do it that way?
Sure.
Yeah.
I can stand here if we need to go
Okay.
back to the slide
Okay,
too.
that's fine. We'll put some lights on so that we can see.
Yeah.
She have a microphone.
What?
Oh,
You have a microphone.
Are there any questions? Tom?
Are the students at all responsible for the costs of repair?
they are.
They
So
are?
we have a process in place, that every time there's a damaged Chromebook, the tech, submits a Chromebook damage report. It goes to the building administrator. They, look at all the details and then they determine, if the parents should be responsible or not. And we did bill families last June for any broken screens or completely destroyed devices.
Did we get payment?
We got payment for about half to 2/3 of those that we invoiced.
Do we have it?
Or we also invoiced for completely lost devices, and we got payment for those that were, left in a backpack, on a bus somewhere.
Do we
Payment
have-
or a device magically showed up.
Pardon me?
Yes.
Payment or a device magically showed up.
Yes.
Do we have any insurance offers for the parents?
We don't. We did look at insurance options, and in fact, a lot of districts are moving away from that. There's several reasons. We can't require parents to buy the insurance, and then we don't have the staffing to manage that insurance once we do have it in place. It would be.
No, I was thinking more of a company that could offer it directly to parents.
Well, the devices are owned by us, so they would have to get the insurance
Oh,
through
okay.
us.
So it
Yeah.
has to kind of be insured by the owner?
Right, so yeah, we don't have the infrastructure to have a person that just managed the insurance part of the Chromebooks. So a lot of districts have moved away from that. I talked to several, like 20+ districts. A few are requesting a technology fee at the beginning of the year, sort of like athletic fees. But the difference is we're giving Chromebooks versus choice to play.
Right.
So-
No, I'm not criticizing your judgment in the decision, just wondering if the decision is there, because as you described, there's a reasonably high fallout rate.
There is. There's a lot of damaged devices. The school wins. The middle school students are the toughest on the Chromebooks. Yeah. Yeah. The backpacks we hope will help, and so that was, backpacks were approved for use for this year, and we're hoping it cuts down on our damages.
That, and it's the first time they're transitioning between multiple classes throughout the day, so there's just a lot. And, that, the thought of going from one end of the building to the opposite, grab all your stuff, I mean, there's some factors and some growth that needs to take place for our 12 and 13-year-olds, so.
Can
So
we-
basically, we have the inventory we have now, which is aging out fast, and 1,600 of those devices were purchased with some sort of funds. And we have to come up with a budget plan to get us to a sustained funding level.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The other question I have is, in the short-term information that you presented, does that reflect the recent extension of support for some products?
Yep, so any Chromebook that was built or purchased after 2021, I believe, falls in that category, the new 10-year auto update. So not all of our devices were purchased after 2021, so those aren't in that new 10-year update feature from Chrome. But that's where this revenue piece falls in. If they are within that 10-year, we possibly could get money back from some of those devices. But we're finding that our devices don't last more than 4 or 5 years, no matter how long the end of life is
Yeah.
on the manufacturer.
Okay, thank you.
I have yet to see a Chromebook that's lasted more than 5 years
With a student.
with a student.
How's our staff with them?
A little better.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Carol?
No?
Thank you very much. That was
Great,
really
thanks,
helpful.
Cynthia.
That was great. Thank you. Thanks so much. And I assume you know that you don't have to stay for the rest of our meeting. I mean, you're welcome to. We love guests and, All right.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much for that. We're going to move on to the next part of our agenda, which is the principal reports. Since Tim just got settled, I was going to hope that Patrick could start. So I guess you'll start with your principal's report and then move over to your goals presentation. I think, is that how we're going to do this tonight? Report, goals, is that what we're going to do?
Present, or do we have?
Let's present the goals. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. So the same thing, like from behind the whole thing, yeah?
Or not, I don't know.
Yeah.
Rock, paper, scissors.
Just like summarize the principal's report, we all read it, so just quick summary of the principal's report, and then you can review the goals quickly. That'd be great.
So we are continuing on with our monthly community meetings. There's a few pictures from September community meeting. We played a few games, and we continue to recognize our students and our staff for their kindness efforts this year. We have an HBMS Student Council cast field trip, where about 20 of our students are going to a Safe Teens Middle School Youth Summit. Hopefully we'll focus on wellness activities intended to empower youth to enhance skills and peer support, empathy, community building, advocacy, and wellness. Our student council is really seeing an increase in numbers this year, which is great. Excited about our drama club and our robotics club getting up and running, thanks to Melissa Eniwet, who is a kindergarten teacher, I believe, at RMMS. And our Spanish teacher here, Caitlin Marengo, is helping out in a support position with drama. Also thanks to Bob Poole and Samantha Boudreau for stepping up to take over robotics. Seeing some nice increase in numbers in robotics this year. And our drama club continues with big showing of students. Our Veterans Day Assembly is scheduled for November 9th. We are looking for any community members that have not received a letter from us. Anybody that might be new to town, just interested in participating in our Veterans Day Assembly on the 9th of November at 8 a.m. PTSA is going to have some coffee and refreshments in the morning. We'll go over our building goals and a new course proposal. Obviously, Captain Ransom's not with me tonight, but I'll be doing my best to share the new course proposal. Just a few specials highlights. Art and Tech Ed. Our art teacher, all of our new teachers have been great additions to the building. We just wanted to highlight a few of our new teachers. Art is an interim position this year. This is Argerig. She's doing a fantastic job. If you haven't been through the building yet, there's some really great art made by students all through the building. And just one snapshot of that is the Draw a Night activity that they did, which focused on discussions around drawings and ourselves being unique and different in our own ways, that we're all knights. It was a really nice discussion, and Mrs. Argerig's been a great addition to the building, along with Mr. Schmidt, our tech ed teacher, who's got 7th graders already working in the shop, and they've been working on their bridge projects in tech ed. That is my board report, as quick as I can do. Some important dates down there.
Great, thanks. And then, goals.
Do you want to present? Or
It's up to you.
everybody has them, correct?
Right.
Yeah, we have them in front of us, so you can just go through them if you want.
So our first Habits of Learning goal, I'll start on the Habits of Learning goal. We created goals my first year together, and we've just been kind of fine tuning them. Last year we really developed these 4 goals, and I feel I've done a really nice job of moving forward with these 4 goals. So the first one, continue to develop an integrated systematic approach that is research-based to ensure global development of all needs. This is an update. Our action steps are updating our ROC program. We've been seeking input from staff and students on interests that help drive ROC programming. We're researching and recommending an empathy unit in ROC that is ongoing this year. We're continuing to train students and staff in mental health first aid. Our counselors are doing a nice job of popping into health classes, continuing on with our suicide prevention training for students. And we've also done our bullying prevention procedures presentation with our students, 7th grade students in health class. So just some ways that our goals align with our long-term vision are below. I believe those are aligned with our portrait of graduate. Moving on to our infrastructure goal. We are continuing to improve, review, and refine our safety preparedness plans. One area that we've made some updates this year is the avoid, deny, defend procedures, which is in place of our lockdown. We did quite a bit of research last year, and we did a training at the end of last year that was put on by our local PD police department, Rick Bergeron being one, who we missed dearly, but everybody did a really nice job in the avoid, deny, defend training. Also last November, we had Homeland Security come in for a training, and we did some tabletop exercises, which helped kind of drive our transition to the avoid, deny, defend training. There are action steps. You can all read them, so I won't
No, it's
continue
fine.
to read. Essential standards goals. Implement and monitor a life skills program for grades 7 and 8 that address and meet academic and developmental needs for all of our students. We are in our first year of implementation this year. It's a similar model to high school, but developmentally appropriate for middle schoolers. So it's really been a few of our students who are in life skills reaching out to staff, asking for different ideas for food that they're going to be going to the grocery store, purchasing, preparing meals, and producing something that they're going to sell to staff. And it's been a great addition to the building. I know it's a positive aspect of the high school that we're excited to have this year and continue to see grow. Step 6, action step 6, we did have our first career fair 2 years ago. So we're going to do biannual career fairs. So this spring we're going to have another career fair. Where we brought a whole bunch of community members 2 years ago, and we'd like to do the same model this year, where just if anybody is interested that would like to come in and talk about their career, we're certainly open to having more people attend. And then the last goal, which we are at an implementation stage at this point, so that probably should say implement instead of review and refine. A semesterly review of individual student academic achievement and implement a systematic data collection process to meet individual student learning needs and focus on learning. So last year we spent quite a bit of time of developing a writing rubric with our English departments. And this year we're really trying to implement semesterly writing opportunities for students to reflect and collect some data. And what we've noticed just in reflecting on our SAS scores is that there is an area of improvement, especially for our students, our special ed students in the area of writing, which is what my course proposal will be. I don't know if now is an appropriate time to toss that out, but it goes well with this goal.
So it falls under the discussion portion of our agenda, but it seems like since you're talking about it, we should just move to that.
Okay.
I'd like to kind of keep everything bundled, so if it's okay with everyone, we could just have him move to talk about the course proposal. That way, we're sort of all on the same topic at once. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, great. So go ahead. You
So
can
we're
move.
looking for approval, not necessarily tonight, but at some point this year, for a new writing course at the middle school that's for our identified students with special needs in grades 7 and 8 to provide skill-specific instruction based upon defined areas of need. Instruction will be carefully paced, structured, and sequential to ensure skills are mastered and reinforced as new skills are introduced. The course is designed to strengthen foundational writing skills, which will aid in this transition to the general ed English curriculum. Successful completion of the course will be determined based on successful demonstration of the acquired skills with decreased levels of support and intervention. The real goal here is that we're going to hopefully lower numbers of special ed classes at the high school, because we're really thinking that earlier intervention with writing at the middle school, we can target those smaller groups, will help them be more successful and ready for high school education.
Great. So questions, yeah, on anything, on Patrick's board report, on Patrick's goal report presentation, and on the course proposal.
What what will be the method for
assessing, and what will be the threshold for inclusion in the writing program?
So this is IEP driven, that students with goals around writing will be placed in these classes. I don't think we necessarily have a threshold at this point, but whatever goes into a student's IEP is usually based on whatever their need is. If it's writing, then we'll look at whatever their writing need is and make a determination if they're eligible for that writing class.
So it won't be available unless there is at least an IEP?
Yes.
And what do you expect to be the the approximate number of students that will be in the program any given year?
We're seeing an increase in numbers based off of what we're hearing from the elementary schools. I don't have an exact number.
I mean, is it
right now.
Lauren's
So
is it
right
10,
now-
is it 15?
Lauren's here.
Okay. So right now, the number of students that we're looking at for next year would be 6 to 7 per class. I believe we're looking at 2 classes for next year, so it would be about 6 to 7 students per class.
And is it a defined length of time that they're in it, or do they come in and go out as?
Yep, so the goal is for them to be able to come in to solidify their skills and then to exit out and transfer into the regular English class. So we're looking scheduling-wise to align the writing course with an English class for their team that they can then weave into, so there's no disruption to their schedule. So it's tackling what's on the course proposal in a way that's a little bit more in-depth than a directed study writing intervention. It's taking the writing intervention to the next level where we're now really solidifying the application of the skill. So that way, when they go into the regular ed class, the differentiation piece is more attainable.
So, the metrics in which to know that this is going to be successful will be the number of students that move out of it, move out of the identified students to move out of this and are in regular classes at the high school, or by the time they get to high school?
Yes, I think that, when we look at, so it's highly individualized, right? So,
Sure, yeah.
So we can't quite say that one student's path is going to be a metric for another student's path. So that's difficult to kind of look at in that way. But because of what we're seeing with the application of writing skills, being a challenge right now, this is kind of a way to be able to tackle curriculum components that apply to English classes in a more holistic way, so that, yes, they can be in English classes that are not in necessarily the self-contained model, and they'll be able to be back in the English class.
So, since the board is really tasked with monitoring and reviewing, is this something that the board will review on a yearly basis in terms of how this program is working?
I think we can. It's
Yes, I know, it's a challenge because the numbers are so small, and so then it
Yeah.
becomes a little bit identifiable, but we can have anecdotal discussions about this level of
Right.
success, of our ability to transfer students back into a general ed curriculum and be successful.
I think it's a great idea. It's just that the fact that if we're expending funds and so forth, we have to have some way to know how it's going without getting into the identification of
Right,
anything.
right.
We don't want to go there anyway, but, so.
So what I'm hearing you say is that potentially a student could start in this and then maybe by November, December, be fully mainstreamed into the typical English class, but some might not be till March,
Correct.
and some might not be till the end of 8th grade.
Correct.
And okay, so it depends on the student.
correct.
Right.
Yeah.
And they won't be in the typical English classroom while they're in this class, right?
Correct.
So it is called writing, but if you look at the actual curriculum, it is really an English class. So we have a reading class, which is very different. This is writing, but truly it is an English class where they're doing a lot of reading and analysis. So they're not just having that isolated writing task, as Lauren mentioned. It's really the application to literature, the same as they would have in the grade 7 English or grade
Right,
8 English.
right.
It's just with that additional support, and all of the lessons are targeted at the specific deficits.
So there's a reading component to this? Okay. Makes sense.
It always is when you teach writing.
Correct. There's gonna be a research piece, literary piece, poetry
Compare,
units, short stories
contrast, yeah,
units, those kinds of things.
contrast, yeah.
Does this require approval from the full team to have the student participate? Specifically, do the parents have to agree to it?
Yes, so this would be an IEP service on the service grid, so yes, the IEP team would discuss and make this proposal, the parent would accept or decline.
Great.
Is there any possibility or value in there being a pathway into the program for students who have not been identified, but where staff members feel that it would be beneficial?
Yeah, so we've discussed that, and in looking at this proposal and where kind of our needs are that we've identified, we'd like to start here. But the reading course, as many of you know, it's not only special education. So there is potential for this course to move in that direction where we are able to service more students in that way. That's going to be kind of based on the data that we gather next year and on scheduling. There's a scheduling component to that. That's a challenge. Because for, regular ed students, we can't necessarily pull them out of an English class. So we'd have to figure out what would they miss if they took writing. So there's a scheduling component to that, but we'd like to start here.
Okay. And are we currently staffed, or is there an already existing staff to support this
Yes.
Great.
and a physical location?
Yeah, yes.
So to piggyback on that, part of what you talked about in the goals was reviewed and refined a writing rubric to meet the needs of HBMS students. So you also did work regarding what was going on in the typical classroom regarding writing, and have been doing a lot of work defining a rubric to deepen some of the writing instruction in the 7th and 8th grade English classes as well.
Correct.
And it's being implemented, or it's just being refined at this point and reviewed?
It's being implemented.
Okay.
Last year was really our research and recommend year.
Okay.
And this year, it's really our first year of implementation. So that
Great.
review refine should say implement.
Okay. So you've recommended like writing portfolios and samples and more samples. So that sounds great to me. I mean, it sounds like I'm always happy to hear more writing being done.
Does the new RSA requiring that cursive writing be taught affect the co-op?
Not at all. The cursive and the multiplication tables must be taught by the end of grade 5.
Okay.
Fifth grade.
So we're
Is there any interest in having actual writing as a element of our curriculum? Tell us how you
And
really
and
feel.
can school board members
No, I just don't, I mean, I think it's always a
Participate.
strategy. There's definitely a strategy involved in physically writing, timed writing, not on the computer. There's also a strategy involved in how to write when you are writing on a computer and making edits. But I wouldn't want to say that we're going to tackle that head on as,
No, I'm just thinking
cursive
that
and
if we're putting this energy into letting the kids learn how to do it, because we've put so much into electronic media and collection stuff, are we keeping an intent to exercise those muscles and those skills even when it's not a state requirement?
In terms of cursive, is that your question?
Handwriting as
Oh.
opposed to it being all
Okay,
electronic.
I'm sorry, I was just trying to clarify the
Yeah, see,
question, that's all.
you know about the
Yeah, I know the cursive thing, but I didn't.
So,
Yeah. Mhm.
I'm just wondering if there's any desire or intent to keep that skill possible, because I've
I'm
heard-
getting the sense from the room, no.
Really?
no, I mean, I think like I said, there's, it is important. However, sometimes that aspect interferes with the actual targeted skill that we're looking for, the ability to write. So I wouldn't want to say that we're going to place an emphasis on it, because then we're taking away the actual curriculum that we're to teach. But I do think it's a strategy, especially when you have all the ChatGPT out there. I mean, there's certainly a reason why you'd want to do physical writing, but sometimes, like I said, that becomes a barrier. So I would hate to just place all emphasis in one area or another and just continue to be broad and flexible and to look at individual units and assignments.
Yeah, I was just shocked to hear that people at the governing board meeting saying they have kids who can't read
Cursive writing.
cursive writing.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah. Yeah.
My kids cannot read cursive writing.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That-
Okay.
That's, I can't
And that's
comprehend
why
that.
our third graders are going to learn it again.
A new career.
What?
Public
Yeah,
input is
yeah.
expired.
Okay, just, I mean, my
Just
board
to
is
let you
letting
know.
me know that public input has expired for anybody who showed up, or was interested in showing up, can't now.
Or
I just
that
thought
way.
it was called a writing course, they
Okay.
would actually be able to
Feverishly
write.
on
Okay,
Right.
thank you, Cindy, thank you, Rob. All right, so are there any other questions for Patrick on the goals or on the course? Okay, thank you very much. Thanks.
done, thank you.
Well done, thank you for the presentation.
Question to you, though. At what point do we actually have to take action on the proposal?
I believe that
it
that
gonna
is
be
not
today?
a deliberative item
Yeah,
tonight, but we're gonna,
looking at next month, just to let,
Right.
that way you have time to look it over.
Okay, so it won't start tonight?
No, we're not asking for a vote tonight.
Okay.
Are there costs associated to this program?
If there were, it'd be very minimal, because we have the staffing, we have the space, we
Okay.
have the furniture and all of that, so it would just be very minor.
Okay.
potentially like some
And that
supplies
could
or
just
something,
come,
yeah.
we can be funded through the operating budget in
Correct.
some form or
Yeah.
fashion?
Yeah,
Okay.
We don't need to allocate a specific amount for this.
But it's not a deliberative item tonight, so. next
Thank
month.
you.
Okay, so moving on, we will be doing the high school principals report and goals. Or did you want Gracie to go first? Sure, that would be great.
I'm just thinking.
Okay, so I'll do a homecoming update first. It went really well, which is awesome. We made a profit of around $3,300 for the senior class. which
Yay.
is great. A big thank you to Miss Beck and the parents for helping with decorations. We could not have done it without them, and it looked great. Second, we had a leadership conference that many of the student council members and also student leaders across all organizations and clubs attended in Milford with the Girls Club. We talked about what leadership meant to us in an open discussion, and then we also had a guest speaker, Kendall Reyes from the NFL, or former NFL player. He is from Nashua. He spoke to us about his experience with leadership and qualities that he found to be important in a more professional setting, which is really interesting and good to hear. And then we also pre-screened the Like movie, which was recently, or actually these past 2 days, showed to the student body in Cablock. So that was nice, and we had an open discussion about that and talked about how we could facilitate as leaders conversations with the rest of the student body about the documentary. And then lastly, right now the juniors are working very hard on the Halloween assembly, which is coming up next week. We have our Halloween Spirit Week. And they have new games like potato sack race and donut on a string. So they're very excited about that. And
From the past.
Yeah, they should be fun. And then they have their MC selected. So they're looking in really good shape for that. And then our Spirit Days this year are sweater weather on Monday, surfer versus biker on Tuesday, wear pink for breast cancer awareness on Wednesday, and Wednesdays we wear pink. Thursday, superhero versus villain, and then Friday, obviously, we have costume day and our annual costume contest at the cup rally. And
That's
that's what we've been working on.
Thanks so much, Grace. Thanks a lot. Thanks for that report. And as I said to Ms. Tyler, you are welcome to stay for the rest of our meeting, but you are also welcome to leave. Does anybody have any questions for Grace before she leaves?
Thank you. Great.
No,
Sounds
thanks
like
for
it
the
was-
readout.
Sounds like it was a great leadership
you.
conference. Thank you.
I'm just
Oh.
gonna hand out the school profiles. I have the hot off the press.
I always like getting the hard copy of the school profile. Do you want us to take one and pass them around so you can get started? I like the hard copy. I keep them all in a drawer.
Okay, so I will start off with my principal's report, and then we'll go from there. So first off, I want to highlight at a recent Region 16 CTE meeting, we were informed that the Region 16 will be dissolving at the end of this school year. and that schools were asked to sign new 4-year agreements, replacing the old 20-year agreement with individual CTE centers. Schools are allowed to sign on to more than one agreement with partnering schools. However, they asked us to use specifically the school calendar alignment as a primary goal. We have intentions of signing agreements with Alvern and the 2 Nashua schools, thus ending our agreement with Milford. We found that Milford had 13 days in their calendar that inhibit our students from attending CTE, that 13 school days that our students do not attend CTE because of largely professional development days in the Milford district, as compared with 3 days in Alvern and 3 days in Nashua. We also looked at course offerings and found there to be some redundancy in the offerings at Milford with those at Alvern and the Nashua schools. So our plan will be to move forward with a 4-year agreement with Alvern and Nashua North and South starting next year. I want to, last month we mentioned that we had 5 students who qualified as the National Merit semifinalists, and as is the case every year, the month after that we find out how many students were commended, which is also a tremendous honor. Although they're not in the running for the scholarship, their accomplishments on the PSAT and MSQT exam as a junior is certainly noteworthy. So I'd like to say congratulations to Ali Ostermiller and Simmer Sadhu. We were recently informed that our Performing Arts Department continues to excel. We had a number of students nominated and accepted into the All New England Festival at Plymouth State University, these 11 students. I will mention them by name: Lila Frankel, Kayla Lumpkin, Emma DiGennaro, Ollie Toner, Casey Young, Katya Chakina, Lexi Klein, Catherine Jokinen, Savannah Duquette, Jackson Kolb, and Mark Croto. They will be heading up to Plymouth State later on this month and in a full-day workshop under the guidance of a conductor, Dr. Harmony Markey, and the Plymouth State Choral Ensembles, which, by the way, include a couple HB alum. I also wanted to mention that for the first time ever, Hollis Brookline Honors Choir has been named as the official honorary guest choir for the 2024 All New England Choral Festival. That'll be happening next year in the fall. And again, that's for the first time in history. Our entire honors choir will be heading up there for a 3 to 4 song solo set. So very, very good news out of the Performing Arts Department. They have the first concert tomorrow night. Scheduling committee. Over the course of the last 2 years, the Instructional Practices Advisory Subcommittee has worked to explore the efficacy of implementing an advisory program at the high school. While the group did come to the conclusion that an advisory of some sort would benefit the students of HBHS, the practicality of implementing one would require a schedule change, bell schedule change, and with that determination, we have since formed a scheduling committee. That scheduling committee has developed including our existing schedule, 5 different schedules that we actually presented to our staff today at a staff meeting to inform next steps, to hopefully be able to provide these and incorporate them into the contract negotiations that are going on in the moment. I wanted to mention 2, Challenge Day return to Hollis Brookline. 85 students and about 20 staff took part in Challenge Day on Wednesday the 4th. We did have a board presence, which was fantastic. I was lucky enough to be able to take part. A very moving program, something that we're going to continue to bring that group back together with the hopes of continuing to improve a strong school culture throughout the school year and in years to come. Our goal will be to bring the program back again next year. We have a handful of upcoming dates. Like Gracie mentioned, we did just do the Student Leadership Retreat. We watched which when this was printed had not occurred yet. We watched the movie in school yesterday and today. We have a PD Day coming up, first day of November. We have our annual Veterans Day Assembly, and we have our parent-teacher conferences scheduled for the week prior to Thanksgiving. And as always, I am open to questions or any comments.
Questions on the board report? We'll take these one step at a time, I guess. Go ahead, because you look like you have one.
Tim, who's on the scheduling committee?
We have a student representative. We have the entire administrative team, and we have teacher representatives from, I don't want to misspeak here, if not all, most of the departments in the school.
So there's no board participation on that?
That's correct.
I wanted to ask both of you, how did the viewing of Light go? And how was that?
So the preview we watched with the student leaders last week prompted a passionate discussion. I think the film itself was created prior to COVID. So as we know how quickly technology advances, even some of the points that were made in the film didn't perfectly apply to this group. Now the student leaders that we brought, we had an opportunity in a smaller group setting to, kind of discuss the idea here. We're not talking about the film specifically, we're talking more about technology and finding a balance in our lives. I think one of the main points that, some of our students, that hit home with some of our students, is the idea of data and personal information and privacy, and kind of that invasion of privacy that we know is occurring, and their I guess their line in the sand and what they're comfortable with, and as we continue to move forward, they're identifying their comfort level and understanding. We had a really good discussion, so I had the opportunity to, because we don't have home-based Cal Block for seniors, I had all the seniors in the auditorium, so we had a really nice discussion about technology in their lives, technology in their future, and where technology fits in their life right now. So some really insightful kids thinking about kind of critical thinking about what role technology will play in their lives as we advance forward, and in 5 years what it looks like, in 10 years what it looks like when they have children, school-age children, and whatnot. So here's how quickly things evolve, and at the end of the day, the big takeaway for us that we tried to drive home was to think critically about the use of technology in your life, and essentially, always understanding that it is a choice. You do have say, and more is not necessarily what's right. You can always make a decision about that and think critically about it.
And every once in a while, just look up from your phone.
And look up from your phone.
Just look up every once in a while. Say hi to the person that you're passing on the campus instead of like.
Anecdotally, I will say, even since COVID, I would say there's a different relationship with tech. Some of this, I would say, this particular senior class and the underclassmen below them. Maybe the tides are shifting a little bit. They seem to be more aware about that, I'm going to use the term loosely, but addiction to tech. And,
right.
I think that it is starting to come back around where they have been told since they were younger that, these messages, that it doesn't have to be yes, more. They're starting to think about the balance and questioning. Doesn't mean that we all don't struggle with it. They don't struggle with it. But there's a heightened sense of awareness, more so than even 2-3 years ago, I would say.
Right, I think parents are learning more about it too, so.
Yep.
Yeah. And did you feel it went well?
Yeah, a different type of conversation that we facilitated in our rock groups. I think middle schoolers oftentimes want to push against what we're asking them to do or not do, and this just gave us a little bit more weight in that discussion. And sometimes I think middle schoolers just think we're old and we don't know what it's like to be a middle schooler and we want these devices, but this is really good reasons why we're asking them to keep it away during the day in the middle school. And for the most part, I think they heard it. It's, 7th graders are still pretty young, but where we kind of targeted was they gave some good suggestions on easy ways to make some change, like charging your phone in your room at night. So we came up with a list of ideas for kids to try and implement right now, because we do have some concerns of some students staying up, pretty late on their devices and what the blue screen does to your body and your mind and not winding down. So Probably a different type of conversation, but I think it was,
Writers this week.
yeah, still impactful.
All right, thank you.
Great, thanks. Any other questions? Yeah.
I just wanted to take a moment to thank Tim and Patrick and really everybody K to 12, because we have this discussion about the school profile every year, and I just worry sometimes we take it for granted. We have 38 students in the last 6 years qualify for some national merit or commended students. SAT scores are well above the average. 85% of kids are scoring a 3 or better on AP testing. Then we shift over and we hear about all the wonderful things that our honors choir and music kids are doing. We get to see what they do on the athletic fields. And I think, that just doesn't happen. From the school board to our administration, to our students, to the teachers in the trenches, really all the way back down to Hollis Primary and RMMS. And these are the results for that. So we get to celebrate it, but I sometimes think, because we live it every day and we're always looking, just like their goals tonight, what are we going to do next? We're adding a new writing course because we identified concerns in writing. Brian's going to talk about athletics in another minute. And it's just what Tim did, and I think it kind of got fluffed over a little bit, but the 35 kids he took for leadership is his design, his vision for how we start to work with youth risk behavior surveys and develop our own leaders to address those.
Yeah.
And, it's cultivating how to become a leader, and to think of taking an entire senior class by yourself as the principal and having a discussion about a movie. Those things don't happen. So I just want to make sure we take a moment, and for me personally, thank everybody who contributes to that, from the lady in the food service line who teaches the kid how to get their food properly, to our custodians who clean up, to everything that happens, because it's truly remarkable, and it's year in, year out. Next year it's just a matter of who's going to be on that music list. And it may not always be the same sports team, but it's going to be what team is, really worked hard in the weight room and is exceptional this year. And it's the teachers who are giving up their time to do SAT prep so that our scores are there. I asked Tim to check because I had heard that we presently had a student in each grade at West Point. I was wrong. We have a freshman, 2 juniors, and a senior. How many schools have 4 kids at West Point? You reminded, was it Oxford we had somebody?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
the Naval Academy as well. So it's just, I don't want it to become names on the back of a program. Obviously, that's a young man or woman who's dedicated so much time, because to get into those type of schools, it's not just a 4.0. It's the entire package, and I really want to thank Brian and Tim for the leadership piece that they're cultivating next, because I think that's really going to show in the next decade, when everybody around this table is different, but yet these results stay the same. It's because of the thoughtful commitment by you as a board and our administration. So I just wanted to make sure, kudos, and I know Brian's next, and kudos to him for where he's taken athletics during his tenure as our athletic director. But I couldn't let it go unsaid, because sometimes I'm not a big fan of numbers, but the day in, day out consistency is what I'm really proud of.
It's true, very true.
Thank you for taking a minute and doing that. That's
Yeah.
terrific. Thanks, Andy. Thank you so much. Couldn't have said it better myself. Great.
Thank you, Andy.
Moving
I
on
did-
now, your goals.
Okay, yeah, I think we covered the profile. Any questions on the profile?
I didn't even realize
But
you did that,
it is a beautifully done document, and I
Yeah.
do love getting it every year. And it would be really nice if the other school boards did get it as well, because it is really a culmination of
that's a
12 years
really-
of.
a really good
So
point.
even if it just like 5 copies went to Brookline and 5 to, just so they had it, because
Absolutely.
it is a culmination of all of a pre-K through 12 district. So.
Will do. Okay, so looking at the future, looking at our goals, I would like to bring everyone's attention to our first goal, which is for infrastructure. While we are certainly in the implement phase, we do continue to review and research and make recommendations about our current tech plan, which Carol, obviously her entire presentation was about current situation, future planning. So that's an ongoing conversation that we continue to have. The auditorium updates in a similar light. While we have begun the implementation phase in round 1 of the upgrades, we'll continue to make decisions based on needs and for future improvements to the auditorium. The tennis courts updates does certainly remain in the research and recommend phase. That is something that we are looking at down the road. The back lobby safety renovations, as we have discussed, we have a plan that we're working through with an architect that it's been recommended through Homeland Security in a matter of securing funds to begin that in the near future to upgrade the facility so our 2 main entrances and their security measures mirror each other. Turf field completion. While the turf field is certainly completed, we continue to identify areas of need. So the tech infrastructure is something that we continue to improve on, including the lighting for our recently paved turf lot, as well as fencing enclosure that we plan to budget for and install in the coming years as well. Ongoing roof repair phases and the building and grounds access with lower lot cameras, turf lot lights, and sidewalk around the building. Moving on to our future ready goal. We have our instructional practices committee. We continue to work on our evolving building needs, our grading and assessment. Again, even just today, we presented at our staff meeting the grading and assessment statement of philosophy that will guide next steps in that work. We continue to work through development of alternative pathways to support our student needs based on the evolving kind of student that we're seeing with VLAX, Edgenuity, ELOs, CTE programming, et cetera, et cetera. So we continue to adapt and respond to student needs and develop programs that meet them. We continue to work to define and, again, meet student needs with regards to interventions. We have an internal team that continues to evaluate our procedures and identifying students who are in need, both academically and behaviorally, and identify systems of support, including examples such as our school social worker, our school psychologist, our school counseling team, our potentially our 504 directed supported study, et cetera, et cetera. So continuing to meet student needs and evolving our programming to meet that. Continue to expand and enhance our choice programming. That's something that we have evolved in the last couple of years through the guidance with from Lauren at the SAU, through our building level administrative team and our special ed department. That's a program that I think, I think is something that came into place when I had left and having returned. It really hits home and meets a lot of students' needs who maybe otherwise prior to we were not meeting. So it's really nice to see that program evolve. Moving on to essential standards goal. Continuing to work with Patrick and his team, working through vertical alignment in our joint department meetings. We have one scheduled for November. We'll continue to do those quarterly. I think the next work that we'll be doing is specific to grading and assessment and coming up with or identifying common practices and philosophy around grading. Our instructional practices committee recommendations for schools procedures, specifically with respect to grading and assessment practices. We do have NEASC coming around the corner, and that is something that we'll continue to research best practices. I did send a teacher to a visit last year. My goal is to do that again this year, at least another member of the staff, ideally an administrator. The process has changed since the last time they were here, so that's something that we will benefit from some professional development on what that visit will look like. Review and accept new extracurricular activities when proposed by students. So this is something that near and dear. If you do look at the school profile, you'll see an expanded list. Again, rebounding from COVID, where a lot of those extracurriculars were kind of, defunct. There was, the enrollment was low, and it was hard to get the groups together for a variety of different reasons. So they are alive and well, active. The school is abuzz. Even just leaving the building tonight, there were people in all corners of the campus with activities going on, and that's really great to see. So continuing to incorporate activities, special interest groups that often come from student interest. So continuing to incorporate those. And lastly, habits of learning. Tier 1 SEL supports, so research best practice in providing programmatic Tier 1 SEL supports. In so many words, that's looking at that advisory piece and programmatically scheduling something to meet the needs of all students. And while we've done a great job over the years in meeting kids' needs, it's happened without that element in our schedule. So hopefully that will move forward and incorporate SEL interventions into our SIT protocols. So SIT, that's that student intervention team. That's the group of staff that comes together every other week to identify needs within the building. And then lastly here, this is support grade 9 student transition. So we did look to change our programming within the school counseling department. So we are looping students. So we have a couple counselors who came in with some skills around that grade 9 student transition. And we are now grouping students according to their grade level. So we have students who are in grade 9 with one of 2 counselors, and those 2 counselors will stay with them all 4 years, just as they always have, but the needs for a specific class are often unique. The needs for a freshman group are different than that of a senior, so as a counselor, focusing your efforts specifically on freshmen strengthens that program in that transition. So we have counselors working, and in addition, it also mirrors our administrative team. So we have counselors working with students in grades 9 and 11, and that matches up directly with our administrative team. And we have students in grades 10 and 12 working individually with a specific counseling team. So they will stay with those counselors as they do their administrator over the 4 years like they always have. But again, it meets the needs specifically of those classes a little bit better than a counselor working with students in all 4 grades. Does that make sense?
I think so.
Happy to answer any questions on that if I can clear it up, or anything in the goals.
Any questions for Tim on his goals? So they come in and then they have the same counselor for all 4 years.
Just as always, yeah, you're assigned to a counselor.
But it's just you're assigned to
over.
counselor, but the same with the administrator. So the administrator follows the 9th and, so when they're the 9th and the 11th grader, then the next year they're the 10th and the 12th grader. I got it.
Yep,
Okay.
and the school counselor will remain with those students as they always have.
Right.
But the counselor's time and focus is specifically on the needs of 2 classes instead
Right.
of 4 classes.
I gotcha.
So instead of focusing on college entrance and essay writing and
Right.
recommendations and all that goes with seniors, they can focus their energies more specifically on the needs of the freshman group and the junior group.
Right.
As opposed to being spread across 4 grades.
Okay. Gotcha. So what happens when you have all 12th graders?
So you'll never have all 12th, you'll have
Okay.
10th and 12th.
Okay.
Or
So you'll have
9th.
half 12th graders.
Yep.
A lot of 12th graders. That's a rough year.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep, but at the same time,
Right. Right.
there's certain things that come
Right.
with junior year, there's
Yeah.
certain things that come with
Okay.
freshman
I
year.
gotcha. Gotcha.
And
Okay.
If that's the focus, then the idea there is that we'll do a little bit better job.
Okay, sounds like a plan. Any questions? Any other questions for Tim? Okay, moving on to the athletic report. We've got Brian here, and we specifically asked you to come, so we have some questions on some things, so.
All right.
You go ahead, though.
So I will start with a Reader's Digest version here, because I'm sure I do have lots of questions that we'll need answering. So at the high school level, things have been going great this fall. The majority of our teams are looking to qualify for their tournaments. The girls' soccer team is currently undefeated and will enter the tournament as the #1 seed. Girls volleyball looks like they're going to finish in second, just behind unbeaten Bedford, who's won the past 3 state championships. And field hockey is certainly going to be in the mix again this year. They're going to enter the tournament as a 7 seed, but we're really happy with where they ended up as far as matchups and whatnot. The golf team did just finish their season with their Division II state championships over at Breakfast Hill Country Club, and cheerleading and cross country have their state tournament events coming up over the next few weeks. Unfortunately, the unified soccer team was going to take a shot at the girls soccer team and taking them down and giving them their first loss this past Monday. But we had to reschedule a game, so they did end up beating the girls JV team on Monday. So congratulations to Unified Soccer. At the middle school level, we do have tournaments starting next week. The girls soccer team is going to be the #2 seed. Field hockey is going to finish in 6th place in their standings. And the boys soccer team is actually waiting on a coin flip to see who's going to qualify for the last spot in the boys soccer tournament. And cross country just had their Tri-County League meet this past Saturday at presentation of Marion Hudson, and will compete in the state meet at Dairyfield Park this Saturday. So I think this is where we start getting into questions. Do you want me to just...
I mean, so the next question, so the 3 topics that we have questions on were the B teams, like which you're going to talk about, the esports, and then the
athletic agreement.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So before I jump into those, I'll just skip to the bottom. We are very excited. The softball dugouts are just about complete. We're just waiting on some finished painting on those, which is supposed to happen by the end of this week. So those will be ready to go for the spring. Very excited to, kind of give the girls a new home when they're playing games out there. And our district coaching openings right now, we're currently at full capacity at the middle school. I do have a couple of winter openings, but I do have candidates that we're working on getting into those positions for gymnastics and swimming. And then we have a handful of spring openings. If anybody knows of anyone that coaches track or tennis, please absolutely send them my way. And then I'll swing back up to the top. So this fall, we were fortunate to be able to run a B team as kind of a pilot to see what that would look like at the middle school level. I know I've had conversations with several people in here about just kind of the flow of sports from the youth level up to the high school, and where the middle school kind of becomes this pinch point. Not to steal your phrase, Holly, but
it's an hourglass.
Typically when we get student athletes into the middle school, that's the first time that they're being cut from teams. And these kids have probably been playing that particular sport, since they were 4 or 5 years old. Unfortunately, through that process, or fortunately for some of our sports, those student athletes tend to gravitate towards the cross country or track or one of those other activities. So while the numbers are great in those sports, we wanted to kind of come up with a way to provide a home for those kids rather than just, cut them off from playing that sport that they've played forever and love and enjoy. So again, going into this year, our middle school volleyball numbers have always been very high. There's always a pretty high turnover when it comes to middle school volleyball. We had an opportunity in front of us to offer that second team, so that's what we did, and it worked out phenomenally. We had about 30 girls that played volleyball this past fall. They had a 4-game schedule for this year. We're hoping next year that we see that same, high number, and we're able to get them a much larger schedule. If we can get them a 6 to 8 game schedule, that would be fantastic. The Tri-County does offer, for those second teams, they do offer a division where they are able to compete interscholastically to participate in an end-of-season tournament. So that would be our hope for next year. I will add that for this year, there really was minimal, if any, budgetary impact. It was just circumstances where the volleyball numbers at the high school dropped, so we only ended up offering 2 teams at the high school this year when we typically offer 3. So we just kind of reallocated our resources down to the middle school and able to be able to support that.
So the sticking point to run B teams at the middle school is having a coach, being able to pay a coach.
Yep.
What about space, practice spaces, those kinds of things? Did that work out okay?
Yeah, it worked out awesome. We ended up, because we're set up for volleyball in the NPR too, so the B team practiced in the NPR for the majority of their practices. When the A team or first team, however you want to phrase it, was away, the B team was able to go and utilize the main gym for their practices.
And there is a way for B teams for Tri-County to compete.
Yep.
They do have a way to compete.
Yep, they do have a division for any school that has a second team. They lump all those second teams together.
Does being on a B team essentially relegate a student to a lower tier of competition going forward, or do you envision there being mobility for B team players to compete equally with first team players when they make it up to the high school?
Whew, that's a loaded question. So I don't think it entrenches them in a lane, if that's...
I guess what I'm wondering is it viewed as a development area to try and bring the skills up to the level, I'm thinking like in professional sports where you have the lower levels, but there is turnover and the intent is that players there can improve and then...
Yeah, I would argue that the B team is more developmental than competitive. We've seen it happen at the high school level where I can think of a couple of instances where, athletes have been actually fully cut from a team one year and they come back the next year and they're varsity level material. So I don't necessarily feel that being in a B team at the middle school relegates you to that path for the rest of your athletic career here. I view it more as we're offering the opportunity to continue rather than be kind of, I hate to say it like this, but cast aside and, have to go and try and find another sport to play.
Well, the concern is the pinch point is
Right.
that we have all these kids that play when they're little, then they come here and they get cut or there's not enough room for them, but then we need them at the high school. We have programs at the high school that don't have enough players. We have, Brian can probably quote them, but I'm not going to say them, but there are teams that we struggled to field varsity and JV for certain teams last year, and that's what we don't want. We want to be able to have more teams at the high school. So the point was to try and come up with a way to get more kids to be playing at the middle school, and this B team idea could do that. So you're basically trying to have varsity and JV at the middle school level so that you can have more kids playing at the high school level.
Right.
But it potentially could be a budget.
The leagues don't allow a school to have two top-level teams, do they?
No.
No.
No, just one team per division.
So you have to have an A and a B.
Yeah, I think there is
That's
a
fine.
little bit of flexibility in some of the sports. And Gina and I were looking at this one day. I think Ross Lurgio in Bedford actually, their B team, so they're a Division I school, but their B team plays in Division II, I think.
For basketball, they do.
That's what it is. It's for
Is
basketball.
that their middle school? Or their,
Yeah.
either middle?
So, they won't allow them to be in the same division, but they will allow that B team a little bit of flexibility based on how competitive they are, to kind of fall in line where they feel they belong.
So they would be competing as a D2 varsity?
So we're D2 varsity.
Okay. Well, I was, in your
Bedford, yep.
example.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
So
Well, that would be middle school, so like their middle school A team
Right.
is D1 in Tri-County.
Mhm.
And then their B team or whatever, they start, and sometimes they even field 3 teams.
Yep.
But then they run D2 or D3, and sometimes you see like a D1, a D2, and then like a D4.
And just to make it perfectly clear, that doesn't happen at the high school level. Your division is your division, and you have your varsity or JV.
you have varsity JV, and you could have a freshman team
And you could
there,
have a
too.
freshman team,
And
too.
you could have a JVA and a JVB, or,
Yep.
yeah, okay. So you have a little bit more flexibility at the high school level to have a couple of different types of teams, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for that. So do you think this is something that you could see moving forward, but it just, or was this just the, kind of like, everything just kind of fell into place?
Volleyball is definitely sustainable.
Mhm.
I think that's something that we can pretty much guarantee year in, year out that we're going to have 30 kids try out for volleyball, and we could definitely field 2 teams.
Did we have 30 kids try out for any other middle school teams that we had to cut significant numbers?
Well, that's where, when we start getting into winter, especially winter, and basketball is
Yeah, basketball's so hard, because
it's
you
the
only
other
need
big
5
one.
kids to play
Yeah.
basketball.
And that's where there's kind of some other hurdles that we would have to work through as far as basketball goes, specifically surrounding facilities and gym time and making sure that everyone is getting what they need. I'm not saying it's something we can't overcome, but there would be a lot of logistics to work out to try and make that happen.
Well, I appreciate the creative thinking that went into this, so that's great.
Yeah.
Good
thanks.
try, good attempt. Sounds like it went well.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Yay for the B teams.
All right, do we want esports or
You can move on to
athletic or
esports,
junior?
because we're so curious about this.
All right, so I'm not gonna read through my whole blurb here, but the basic gist is the NHIAA last year started exploring esports and bringing it as an offering under the NHIAA umbrella. It all started because I put the number in there, there's about 24 states right now that actually, they do currently offer esports, and it is sanctioned by the National Federation, which is basically the governing body that the NHIAA falls under. So last year, they offered a pilot tournament. They actually ran 2 events, and it was open to anybody that wanted to send a team. They sent out some guidelines. We had tossed it around a little bit, but the timing of it and how quickly they wanted to turn it around was going to be pretty challenging. So that tournament ended up being comprised mostly of schools that currently have esports clubs, and those were the kids that they brought in to compete in those events. That being said, they're looking to build off of that. We just got dates for this year. They're going to offer 2 pilot tournaments in December, early December, and all schools, again, are going to be able to send in a team, and it's up to the schools to figure out what that team looks like, how they select that team, with the hopes of, in the spring, offering an official state championship in esports.
What sport do they use?
So there's about 5 or 6 games or titles that they offer as competitive esports. The 2 that they're looking at are one that's called Rocket League, which, if my understanding is correct, is you're basically cars that play soccer. So you have teams that, you're on a team with 4 people, and you're playing against another team of 4 people, and it's a soccer game. The other one is Mario Kart, and it's just racing. It's Mario Kart racing.
We're all familiar with that.
I actually was on a panel to talk about esports and what that's going to look like. And, I provided as much feedback as I could on what I considered roadblocks. There was some of the people that do their clubs that were really pushing some of these like first-person shooter games. And, any athletic director that was on that panel said, there's no way a board is going to approve us playing a first-person shooter game. The NHIAA recognizes that, so that's where those games came in. That's how they landed on the games that they chose.
How does, in your mind, how does this qualify as an athletic event?
So I think we got to look at two different sides of it. So I agree. I don't think it's athletic in the sense it's not a physical activity. And I think the NHIAA recognizes that too. What they're looking at is all of the other values that they try and promote through sport. So teamwork, sportsmanship, representing your school. For us, one of the things that we've talked about is, if we were to move forward with this, which I can kind of dive into a little bit after, we get through some of these questions. My thing is we're going to reach a whole different subset of kids that don't necessarily fall under the athletic umbrella right now. The director of the NHIAA threw out a statistic. I think there was a state that ran the numbers, and they brought in some crazy number, like 300 players for esports, and not a single one of them played another sport during the year. So, to me, I think I think there's something there. I think that's worth something to get those kids representing their school.
We have multiple extracurricular activities that are competitive, that are team-based, and none of them have been absorbed under the sports umbrella. And in particular, NHIAA, it almost looks like they're trying to morph out of athletics and into just competitive arena. Are they going to want to start officiating robotics competitions, which are clearly leveraging all the same values and many of the other competitive activities? Why this one in particular do we want it to be categorized as an athletic program?
So I can't speak much to that, to what the NHIAA's entire thought process was in bringing this forward. The only thing that I really can point to is just the NFHS piece of things. I think the NFHS being the overall governing body, I think the NFHS has been making a big push to bring esports into high schools.
Is there money involved in? I mean, is there a financial benefit to an organization to oversee this? Do they collect fees? Do they collect membership? Is it going to bolster their revenue stream? Is that, because that to me is the most likely underlying goal, is that they can increase their membership. Does each team have to pay to be part of NHIAA?
Not currently, not in its current state, but that's what the idea would be, is that eventually this would build into a season, just like any other sport, and we'd have, scheduled contests with other schools. They do rankings and, and pull together for a tournament at the end of the year.
Okay, thank you.
So your goal at this point is to start this off as a club.
Correct.
And so that's where you're going to start this from, and it totally makes sense to me. I see where they can see it as a sport. I see the dynamic of kids and their involvement in this, and I understand, maybe because I have two young men in my life who I could see why this feeds that same kind of drive that team sports feeds in terms of the competition and sportsmen and all of that stuff. So I can see where it fits. And as long as we're starting out as a club, I think that makes sense. My struggle with it becomes, if it becomes part of our athletic program, we need to have a conversation as a board with whether or not it qualifies as a credit for gym, because I would have a hard time with it qualifying as a credit for gym.
Yeah, I don't,
That
I
would
think
be,
it meets our
but
threshold as
that's-
it is similar to some of the other
Yeah.
athletic offerings that we
Right.
have, right?
Yep.
Bass
I
fishing.
think there's a more philosophical question, because sports has a connotation. The type of personalities that often get involved in the coaching, the environment. Many of the people that I know who gravitate towards these other the electronic programs, do it specifically to get away from the culture that's associated with it. And I have concerns about it being administered under the same umbrella because of the risk of the culture perhaps permeating it.
right, but if it's administered by NHAA and that's where the opportunity is, and if we have students that want the opportunity, and it's an opportunity that would be something positive for our students, we can't control the umbrella. Like,
But
if
is
the
that the
umbrella's-
only umbrella under which it's propagating?
I would just say, I guess I kind of looked at it the opposite, because I think there'll be traditional athletes now gaming with non-traditional athletes and breaking down walls and barriers that often separate schools and classes. You know, I think when I look at our high school and I go to a play, for instance, and all of a sudden I see kids who are up there that are in athletic programs but are in the theater or in the musical, and that doesn't happen at every school. know,
I'd
and
buy
I-
that if Brian hadn't cited the statistic that the vast majority do no other sports.
Oh, I see that they do no other sport. I'm saying, I think in time you will get crossover.
Yeah, I think you will too.
I think it's going to take time. I can tell you, as a father of 3 boys, it's the gaming is a social event that I see continuing long after athletics. And what I mean is that kids that, like, we maybe knew in high school that we lose contact with, I see my boys staying in greater touch because all it is that you go up to your virtual game and you play each other. So, like, I can't play basketball anymore, but if I had played esports at my age, I could still play esports against the group of guys that I went with. I think it's just something that we're not used to that is going to become the norm.
It's at colleges and universities
Yeah.
already. It's already there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's already, like, and
I
it's
understand,
huge,
but
yeah.
it's not an NCAA sport.
Yeah,
They have their own leagues. They have their own divisions.
yeah. Oh, yeah. So that's the debate. So you be prepared.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, I think the club, you know, we're not
Right. Well, it's
obviously
a club,
diving in
so
on
it's
an
different.
NHIAA sport right out of the gate. So I think
right.
the club will be very telling. You know, we'll see what kind of interest we get, and we can move forward from there. And if and when the NHIAA does decide to officially sanction it and have a season, then obviously I would bring it to the board and we can
Yeah.
have that conversation, if it's
Exactly.
something that we want to pursue.
Next up is the IAA update.
Yes. Do you want me to give the history behind it, or?
Yeah, go ahead, just quick, yeah.
Okay, so, there was a concern brought forward about participating, or participation contests and games over our school vacations. So with that, we took the feedback that was received, and in reviewing our interscholastic athletic agreement, we are looking to update some of the language, just to make it more clear how we actually approach vacation weeks. You know, vacation weeks aren't something that we actively look to schedule contests and events over, but as everybody here knows, the spring season especially can be very challenging when it comes to scheduling, when we're dealing with fields that are covered in snow, baseball fields that don't dry out. You know, we get a lot of rain. Forward with the spring season as well, involving you know, senior activities and AP testing, you know, academic related stuff that we don't necessarily want our kids playing 4 games in a week or 3 games in a row, you know, let alone the just risk of injury when you put kids in those situations. So that's more or less why we do schedule over vacations when we do. We just wanted to update the language in our athletic agreement to reflect that, so it was clear when people were signing the agreement what they were getting themselves into.
So we had a parent come to policy with some concerns that there's no, the policy, the language regarding spring vacation time and whether or not games are scheduled over vacation is not in policy. It's in the athletic handbook. It's in procedure. So the policy committee directed it to the athletic department, and they're bringing this forward to us. We don't approve the athletic agreement. That's a administrative thing, but they just wanted to let us know that they'd be making this change. We review it, right? We don't really approve it. So
Does the handout that came with, in the board packet, does that include changes to address this, or is this to the baseline from which you will be working?
That was just the baseline.
And currently, there's no language in it that specifies the need to participate or the ability to not participate?
no, it's the current language is what's right in front of it.
I pulled it out and just put it right in the report. The current language,
Where is it in the handbook?
It's in
do you know?
his-
section 4H.
The athletes are expected to attend practice.
In his report, though, on the first page of his report, second page of his report, he has the current language and then the change that he's suggesting. Just so we're aware.
And have you made a decision on where you want to go and just have to figure out the language, or are you still trying to figure out where you want to go with it?
What I had put in the report was where I was planning on going with it.
Did you find it, Tom, the change?
Well, I was looking at the other document, so I
Yeah.
did it.
It's in the report. Yes,
I have a
Beth?
question. So this is the language you're proposing to go to. So under the H, it says athletes are expected to attend practices and games scheduled during the vacation weeks. There's no exception to the rule. So I am a little bit worried about that, the no exception to the rule. But also it says, so athletes and or parents should not book vacations or travel plans until team schedule has been posted. A schedule can be posted and then be changed a lot, so I'm concerned about that as well.
So that's the current
that's the
language.
language.
So that's what's going to be
Okay,
changed.
that's what
That's what's going to be
that's what we're
changed to the
changing. Okay.
bottom part.
Proposed
Gotcha,
language.
okay, that's what I was looking for.
Right.
But then no exceptions to, that's what I need to.
So that's why he's changed that. So
I
that
don't think you see that
No, I don't
language
see that in
the
mine, yeah.
proposed
Under
language.
his athletic report, the very
Got
bottom.
it, thank you.
So the proposed language is the change. So it allows
clarify
for,
both of those.
the new language allows for coaches to have discretion and have conversations with students.
Gotcha, now I see it.
So this puts it in the coach's hands of how they want to handle it for their team?
Right.
To what degree will you, as in your administrative role, provide guidance?
I would ask our coaches to come to me when they run across these situations so that we can talk through them, make an informed decision on how best to handle it.
Yeah, I know that the other big one for spring is people who need to make campus visits and stuff too.
Yep.
Yeah, we've had a lot of conversations about it, and most importantly, the person who came to us was really struggling with the fact that, you sign a contract and you don't want to break the contract. You don't teach your kids to break a contract.
Right.
But every kid is different, and every kid's situation on a team is different, and you might have a freshman who's on a varsity team and, not really playing because they, whereas you might have, because we don't have a JV team, like, there's different situations and different circumstances. So that gives the coaches some flexibility and the parents some flexibility, and you're not signing a contract that says that, so.
Does NHIAA take any stance on it?
We also,
February break's always been an issue too.
The winter also, because I know a lot of people over the winter vacation.
yes, February break's hard too, and,
Yeah,
and
NHIAA has worked dates back, so, swimming is typically done the middle of February, skiing's done the middle of February. A lot of the sports in the winter, they do try and wrap up prior to that February break, but basketball always gets hit with it. The first round of the tournament for basketball this year is February break. So.
it's tricky. Playing sports is about choices. Being in high school is about choices. So. All right, thank you. Thanks, Brian. Are there any other questions on Brian's athletic report? Thanks for coming. Thanks so much for being here.
Oh, I got one more thing, sorry.
Oh, great.
It's not in my board report, but, so as everybody is probably aware, our football team has struggled this year. We've had
For numbers or for
Uh,
performance?
both. We've had very low, I shouldn't say very low, but we've had significantly lower numbers of participants over the past few years. Our feeder system is just now getting back on their feet, but where those participation numbers are, we're looking at probably 2 to 3 years before we really see any sort of growth within our football program. So that being said, we've had a number of conversations about what can we do to help our football program, to not lose our football program, and to ensure that our student athletes are having a safe and positive experience. So with that, we kind of had 3 different options in front of us for what we could do. One is just stay in the division that we're in and continue to keep doing what we're doing, which I don't think is very safe for anybody. 2 would have been to drop our football program down to the JV level for a period of time, whether that's 1 year or 2 years. I don't know that that's going to help us. I think it could push a lot of kids away, just with the thought of playing JV versus playing varsity. And then the third option is we can petition the NHIAA to move down a division. So we would move from Division 2 down to Division 3. After talking it through with just about everybody, I feel pretty confident that that is what we should be doing for our football program. We are going to have a new coach next year. The hope is to, that the NHIAA will approve that we move down to Division 3. It will give that new coach some time to, find their bearings, and hopefully see a little bit of success to help continue to build our numbers, but it still gives us the opportunity to participate at the varsity level. The only caveat is the NHIAA's rule is if you petition down a division, you're ineligible for tournament play in the first year of that cycle. So for the fall of 2024, if this all goes through, there's multiple layers of approval before that even becomes a reality. So if we get through that process for the fall of 2024, regardless of whether we qualified or not, we would not be able to compete in the NHIAA tournament for that first year. We would then become eligible for the second year. So in 2025, we would be eligible for the tournament.
That makes sense, though.
I feel it's the best move for us, just based on where our numbers coming up are coming from and how much time before we actually see that boost in numbers.
I was just Carrie, not to put you on the spot, but when you say kind of talk to everybody, and that makes the most sense, who was the feedback coming from?
Tim and I talked, Gina and I talked at length about it, Andy and I had a conversation.
No, and I
Yeah.
knowing what I know too, and, you know, I volunteer on the sidelines
Yep.
with medical, I'm a parent of a football player, but I get a tremendous amount of feedback from parents and from students about why they may not come back and play again, so I think you guys are completely on the right track, but I do think for long-term sustainability and getting more numbers, you really should look at feedback from parents and students, because I'm actually quite impressed by the feedback, and I always turn them back around and say, go talk to athletics.
Yep, and
But there's some
Do a
really
coach survey.
thoughtful reasons on why students are telling me they don't want to come back and play, or why parents are saying, I'm not going to allow my student to come back and play. So I would encourage us to look at that too. And
Yep, and we'll have our survey open
That'd be great.
at the end of the season,
And I know
which
we
is.
do the regular, but just maybe with special thoughts in mind for the programs that are struggling. Maybe not just football. There's some other ones
Yeah,
where
sure.
numbers have really dropped, and I would love to get maybe more thought into those questions. Maybe we'll get better feedback.
Interesting though, when you look at the numbers of students, athletes in our programs, the total number of students is almost always the same. It's so interesting, like the cross-country numbers are up this year, but then other numbers are down. We always have the same sort of number buckets. I don't have the numbers because we don't have them this year, we had them last month, but
Yeah.
but they're, certain programs it's just numbers. When you have 700 or 800 students, and we have about half of them participating in sports, sometimes everybody wants to play field hockey, and then sometimes everybody wants to run cross country, and, not everybody, but, just have more buckets. But right now, doesn't seem like football's super popular.
If we had
Brian?
flag football.
Yeah, good boys soccer numbers.
How does moving down a division help you with low numbers, in the sense that don't you need the same number of students regardless?
Yeah, my concern is so we have about 35 kids this year. I would say of those 35, there's probably 15 of them that had never played football before this year. We graduate 9 seniors, and the number that I'm hearing is that we have 9 players coming in. So that's 9 freshmen replacing 9 older seniors. The level of competition at Division III is going to be significantly less than what we're doing now. I mean, I think.
So it's not so much numbers, but it's numbers at the necessary skill level?
And size.
Size.
And
size.
size.
It'll
Yeah.
be much safer because competition-wise, the likelihood of, if you have 60 players on your team and I have 30 on my team, probability is that you're bigger, stronger, and faster in most regards.
The other thing, I don't know if you considered or if even an option, is like what you did with hockey for a while, where you fielded a team.
Yeah,
in schools.
So we did talk about that. The problem with that is locally, teams that we would typically look at trying to combine with.
They just aren't there?
They can sustain on their own, and that's one of the big things that the NHIAA looks at is, can you sustain your program without another school coming in? And they're going to look at our number and say, yeah, you have a number, you have a fine number, just because they're not as skilled isn't a reason for you to co-op with someone.
Yeah, I didn't know if there were any charter schools or things like that aren't able to field a team, that this would enable them to field a team if
Yeah, they would have to be a member school though of the NHIAA in order to do that.
A pre-existing one, or could they join?
They could join.
So.
Yeah.
You could just do e-football.
So I appreciate that you're trying to be creative again,
Do they
Brian.
drive trucks instead of cars?
So Brian, I appreciate that you're trying to be creative. I do know that there's obstacles though, like there's no guarantee that NHIA is going to approve it, so,
Yep,
but
like I
it's
said,
a
we got-
good
there's
attempt, right?
3 steps before we even
Okay.
get to that
That's a good
point,
idea, and
so.
I appreciate looking out for the safety of the students.
Yes,
Really,
yeah.
the
Mhm.
athletes.
Yeah, because it's not just that, we're never all about winning or losing. It's right now if you're watching and following the scores, you couldn't tell if you know anything about football that it's got to be pretty tough right now to be going out there and losing by the numbers that the kids are losing by, and that's disheartening and hard for the kids, and
Yep.
it does get concerning, so.
You'd think they were the Patriots.
Yeah, well, yeah. I'm not going to comment on the Patriots. I'm a Giants fan, and trust me, that's not a good world to be in right now. So.
Yeah, it's not much better.
No, not better. Okay, so thank you very much, Brian. Thanks for everything, and thanks for keeping us all informed.
Thank you, Brian.
The dugouts look great too, by the way. Did the benches go in the dugouts?
Are they gonna have seats in it?
Because they're not
Yeah,
in
yeah.
them. In the pictures, they're not
Oh,
in the
darn.
dugouts.
Yeah,
the
I knew we
benches
missed
will go
something.
Okay. I was like, the benches have to go in, don't they? Okay. All right, great. Thank you very much, Brian. Thanks so much. You don't have to stay for the rest, but you can if you want to, because it's so much fun here.
Or you can go home and do
All right, so I think at this point, we're a little bit behind, so we're a lot behind. We did the course proposal, so we're at the revenue and
Revenue,
expense
yeah.
report. That would be you, Linda.
Okay, so in June, last time I reported, seems like a minute ago, but our business administrator wrote a memo and said that our fund balance at that point was $330,000, and it could go up or down. And the good news is it has gone up a little bit. So we have a good report to show you. On the expense side, it's the same story we've been saying for half a year to a year. Savings in out-of-district services and special ed, vacancies, lower salaries, corresponding benefits. So on the expense side, we had a $1.2 million savings that we did not spend out of our budget. On the revenue side, we had a savings or a revenue in excess of the budget of $43,000. So if you put those numbers together, that gives the fund balance at $1,254,299. Then, because of that number, we were able to go ahead and fund the maintenance trust at $300,000, the special ed trust at $25,000, the retained fund balance at 2%, $398,000, and the contingency fund of $125,000, giving us a bottom line of $405,866, which is very close to the budget that our business administrator had submitted a year ago of $200,000. So we came out better and stronger, and I think we had a great year.
Excellent. Amazing amount of work. It's terrific. Thank you very much.
Is this
Any-
a final nut? Is that the final?
This is
final
audited,
number.
this is it.
Yep.
Yeah,
Audited
this was all
final
the
numbers,
DOE
that's
report we
amazing.
submitted.
Great job.
So-
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So that's the 405 is what getting sent back to
Gets
taxpayers, right?
returned to the taxpayer.
General fund, yeah.
$405,000. That's terrific.
Right.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other comments? I just, it's just, I don't think people know how much work and time, and, I mean, it's just an amazing amount of work, and it's always done so well and cleanly, and even I understand it, which is
It's fun. I like it.
good for you, because
Can we quote you on that?
I had a crazy this afternoon, so we can go ahead and give that report if you want to, Andy. I have an update. It's up to you.
What we'll do is, you'll just give us an update. Linda had provided me with a walk-in update on this year's budget, and then we knew something wasn't right when you look at the numbers.
We
But
did.
we couldn't figure it out until Linda went home and it came to her. So
Right.
if you want to give us an update, I will tell you, we are projecting right now to be in the hole this year, which is not ideal, but that's just, benefits are up significantly because the number of people that came on board and chose health insurance, and we had a significant number of people go from single to two-person.
Correct.
And then we had some people join us who were brand new to us that took family plans. So it's a big number, but I think in talking with Linda, Kelly, and I'm not worried about it because the way we do everything encumbered, there's a long way to go. But this is the first time we've started out with a number in the hole in a number of years. We've had it since I've been here.
Yeah. And I don't want to spoil everybody. You gotta wake up a little bit.
Okay.
Because, things can go wrong, but
You know, so-
no,
But it also means we're
so-
staffed.
Right. And that's the other thing. We are staffed and understand that this year really didn't have a lot of alternatives in staffing because a lot of people who wanted to come to Hollis Brookline wanted to come and they had many years' experience. And we were excited to get them because that allows us to maintain our standards. But I'm not worried in the grand scheme of things because, you know, once you encumber everything, you give worst-case scenario, which is not good, but we all believe it will get better. So you can give them an update from just the numbers point of view.
Well, just summary, what I was going to say before 4 PM is I was going to give you an expense over budget of $630,000, but I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. So the good news is, the bad news is it's still negative, but it's only negative 200,000.
Okay.
I was
That's
able to
close.
find a $400,000 problem in our payroll software where we were actually paying our extracurricular stipends $1 million. Our software needed a little update.
I do all those.
Yeah, that's a heck of a
We
statement.
should have lots of coaches.
That was not
That's to
good.
fund esports.
Yeah, there you go.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, it is $200,000 negative on the expense side, but I will tell you, as Andy said, I did a huge analysis yesterday on our health insurance because the negative is coming from our benefits line. And specifically health and dental insurance. I did an analysis, total enrollees last year to this year, almost the same, within 5. I mean, really, really almost the same, despite the fact that we had huge number of turnover and new hires. The difference was a shift, drastic shift between single and two-person plan. And it cost the district $8,000 to $10,000 for one person to make that shift. So if you take that times 25 people, that's the 200,000 right there. There's nothing we can do about that. That is what it is. But the good news is we have also $200,000 total in the budget. We haven't encumbered yet. It's still sitting out there free. So we're not worried.
Right.
Kelly and I looked at this and before Kelly, she doesn't even know my update. 3 hours ago, we were gonna go into a freeze. I don't know if we're still gonna do that, go into a spending freeze, to say, don't spend any more money that's not encumbered. But even if that were the case, we would always focus on the children and what the students' needs are, so we'll make it work.
And that's the only driver of the
That was the
overspend?
driver of this report as of October that I
Okay.
just ran. The only negative number right now is coming from benefits significantly. I have a smaller number, I could go into I don't want to go into the detail, but I will say in the vocational program, we have a higher enrollment. We had last year 44 students, and this year I think it's 56. I haven't updated with the high school recently, but I think it's 56. So we've got a $26,000 deficit to the budget in the vocational program. But I don't even have the first invoices yet from the 4 schools we go
Okay.
to, so I don't know where that's gonna come in.
I guess we'll
So
get in-
so next month I can come in with a clean, updated report that won't
Great.
scare people.
Thank you.
hopefully.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
You're
Linda.
welcome.
Thank you. And Linda, you're welcome to, you do not have to stay for the rest of the meeting. Does
Okay.
anybody have any more questions for Linda, though?
That's the only thing, I don't know if you want to be here for the treasurer's stipend.
Yeah, I'll be here.
You're going to stay for that? Okay, great. Okay, thank you. Thanks, that's a good point, Tom. Thank you. All right, so how about, Tom, do you have a quick report from the Budget Committee? Because we are kind of running over.
Sure. Got kind of a summary, a little bit of summary at the governing board meeting, but the biggest issue that was discussed at the budget committee was they saw the SAU budget and were very concerned about the fact that the budget is established in December, and then we vote on it. It essentially gets voted on at the March meeting, and then in May, when we have our meetings with reviews about SAU staff, that's when we make decisions about compensation. So in the mind of the budget committee, we were presenting a budget in March and then changing it 6 weeks later. And there was they really
I don't like
we're
that.
not understanding how the timeline presented itself, and I think they have a better understanding of 2 factors. One is the timeline, and the other is the fact that merit bonuses are not paid out of future budget they're paid out of the past budget, and therefore, it's not, those amounts are not impacting our, whether or not we've stuck to the budget. So I think they left feeling better than they came in, but it highlighted the fact that the work that's being done by the business office to try and get a better handle on the numbers that we have been using in recent past are reflected in the new budget, and that has been done. The other thing that they did was provided some insight into their guidance to the negotiating team for the professional staff contract. I won't go into the details here. Well, they did it in a public format, so everything they said was public. But they had an interesting metric that I have no idea how it came about or why it's used, but they measure the amount of the warrant article in relation to all salaries, not the whole budget, but just all salaries that are being paid, salaries and benefits. And I didn't see the correlation, I brought that up, but the long and short of it is that they did give us some guidance, and that'll be shared with the negotiating team.
Okay, great. Great, thank you very much, Tom. Any questions for Tom? Okay, thank you. Moving on to facilities update, we have a
Sure. So you have a detail in front of you and a hard copy.
That's the best.
And what this represents is our direction to address the immediate needs of the buildings as it stands with the requirements that we're up against and things like that. This is kind of the direction where we're going. Of course, when we bring this as a full recommendation, this will be distilled down even further. But it does have a couple of scenarios relating to fuel conversion of the existing boilers in both buildings. I think the committee is sensitive to the fact that certain solutions need to be specific to the high school, and the middle school requires its own specific solution. So what we did is break out some costs and also some yearly savings and efficiencies by converting the boilers to liquid propane. It also allows us to participate in a larger buying group with the town and the Hollis district for better rates. There's some discussion related to disposition of the oil tanks, ownership of the oil tanks, ownership of the liquid propane tanks, and what the best way to go forward is. We continue to look at that and debate and discuss on that. So we kind of showed out, those different scenarios as well. We also looked at the possibility of replacing the boilers in the middle school completely with brand new boilers. It was the appetite of the committee to see and evaluate that scenario as well. I think generally, and this is my own takeaway from the committee, the concern about doing that, it addresses some issues that the middle school has, but it also raised a concern about being kind of married to brand new boilers for the next 30 years, particularly if maybe the next phase of this committee may move to alternative energy solutions like solar and split air source heat pumps, things like that. That would turn into the primary systems, and the boilers And the liquid propane gas consumption would be considered like a secondary or backup system to that, to the primary alternative systems. So I guess what you see here is it fixes what we need to fix now, but it enables other discussions about further things we can do in a future state or a future roadmap. So I'll pause there for questions. I certainly will let Tom and/or Andy, maybe fill in to things I missed or any other detail that they would like to cover.
I just want to clarify something that if you look at option 3, it talks about HBMS piping redundancy. That's piping in the boiler room that is older than the boilers. That's from the early days, and that's a source of more maintenance issues than the boilers themselves. Whereas if you look down at the bottom, it says HBMS piping is not as bad. That's talking about the pipe from the oil tanks to the building, so those are not the same pipes.
Mm-hmm.
So these are your 5 options that you guys are debating and discussing in the committee, right?
This is supposed to be almost like an a la carte menu.
Right.
Yeah,
And
and
so
that's
that
what
we can
we're
talk about
debating.
all of the different paths to see where there's support for the benefit versus the cost.
And that's the rest of the work that the committee needs to do between now and December. We need to kind of distill this down. I guess my as one member of the committee, my desire would be to bring a single recommendation with a single cost to this board to evaluate, because I think this board needs to figure out how do we structure funding, bond, lease,
Right.
whatever, out of the budget, whatever. I really don't want the committee spending its time on those questions, because it's not their purview, it's this board's purview. So that's kind of where we're at. And I don't know, Andy, is there any other, the other thing I did want to point out is that there is a hot water, I guess they're boilers as well.
This hot water system is heated from the boilers.
But there's other units that actually supply hot water to kitchens and faucets and things like that. I think that was at the high school.
What he was saying is if they went to the propane, the hot water would be separate, whereas now it's heated off of the boilers.
Yeah, I know there's 3 boilers at the high school, plus a hot water boiler that's also working to supply hot water. I mean, it was on
There's a burner.
Yeah, the burner.
There's a
So
separate hot water tank.
there is some conversion and some work in that area. So it's not entirely just 2 boilers here, 3 boilers at the, there's other systems that are related.
That would be affected by the change to
That's
propane.
right.
Do you need something from the board tonight?
No, just to let you know, I think the committee, I believe, is on a good glide path for December to
Okay.
bring forward a recommendation.
Okay.
A most viable recommendation with costing.
Sounds great.
And, the only other thing, I know I keep adding on, I did share some of this information with our, the Hollis Budget, Hollis Energy Committee.
Yeah, that's my question.
There were several members of the committee that thought we were at a good place to bring them in, and they could maybe help us do some number crunching on owning tanks or letting the LP company own them, and coming up with the best analysis for those questions that we have.
So this is different from last year's plan in that this is converting what we currently have.
Correct.
So that we're not replacing and, like you said, married to
Marrying
something
out
for
30
30
years.
So then this makes us makes it more palatable to those folks who want us to really
Right.
really look into alternate energy sources.
Right, it gives us
I
the
got it.
roadmap to it.
Yes,
And
makes
that was,
sense.
that was, at least from my perspective, that's the feedback we received
Sure.
last March.
Yeah.
So I would say that not all the options are just the conversion.
Okay.
And so one important piece that we discussed
Like
at that
option
last
5 isn't, yeah.
meeting is the high school has built-in redundancies, so even if one were to go, you would be fine with the other systems in place, because no 3 boilers are running at the same time. The high school does not, I mean, the middle school does not, so if one goes, you have a whole entire
Half of the school goes out.
Half the school goes
Okay.
out. And so the question is, do we really need to look at that? And so an advantage that I don't want to discount, because I think it's really important and critical to our community and how our community votes for co-op items, is that I don't see us, even if we have a big grandiose plan of looking into alternative energy sources, I do not see us jumping at retrofitting both buildings at the same time in brand-new ideas. So another consideration is kind of fix the problem at the middle school so that we have redundancies and give in some of our elementary districts than they do at the co-op.
Right.
I don't envision a huge bond passing in the near future, and I would hate to then say, now the middle school's without half the building.
Right, I
There's just a
gotcha.
lot of things to consider.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're trying to just be very specific to address what we need to
Okay.
address, because we do have contracts this year. We have budgetary things happening this year. There's a lot going on that, so
Okay.
go ahead, please.
I just have one thing to add. The board should be aware that if we change these from oil to propane and were to go to solar or heat source air pumps, this is still your backup system, which you have to have.
Right.
So the money you spend doesn't go to waste. Now, they're not brand-new boilers, but your backup system would only be asked to run maybe 20% of the time. So you're going to create a lot more life to an older boiler if it's not running very often. But I think the biggest thing that Rob mentioned and Tom echoed is this is kind of like your à la carte menu. And then we're hammering out the details because we already have $350,000 in the budget. So if you didn't dig up the tanks for the oil and just left them in the ground for a year and did them at a later date, you can do the conversion of both buildings. It's now to Gina's point, is it worth it to do that redundancy and be done with it and have it over with? You're not worried next winter that something's going to go wrong. But I can tell you that the members of the committee, I've been thrilled and extremely impressed by the thoughtful discussion, and I think we are going to be able to come in with, probably one recommendation
Yeah,
that is
that's what I
very
want.
cost-effective.
That's great.
Yeah. So thank you.
Sounds like it's been a good process.
Yep.
I like a good process, so that's great. Thank you very much. Thanks for your leadership, Rob.
Sure.
All right, so now we're at deliberations. We need to move to action regarding the treasurer's stipend. And we have a memo that I have to open up.
Memo last week.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So who's going to speak to this?
I am as soon as I find the memo.
It's on board doc.
There it is. All right.
No, not for Andy. Andy has a notebook.
Right here. Power goes out, I can use my phone and still read you the memo.
Very
As we went through the recent
Robust.
process, as you know, unfortunately, we had a longtime treasurer pass away that serviced 2 out of 3 of our districts, and we went into the process of hiring new treasurers. In 2 of our districts they're appointed, and 2 of our districts they're voted on. During that, Linda did her usual analysis and came away saying, we haven't looked at these stipends for over 10 years, and there was a concern. So Kelly and Linda worked together and provided you with numbers from Bedford, Milford, Oyster River, Wyndham, Amherst, Mount Vernon, Souhegan, and you'll see we're significantly below the least amount. And the requirements are basically the same whatever district you're in. So I'm recommending, based on Kelly's memo here, that we increase the stipend to $1,700 per year per school district and $1,275 per year for the SAU. 75% of that would be the district amount. The SAU board already made their adjustment, so we're looking for the co-op board to approve that so we can move forward. To give you a little bit about the job, these individuals are in the SAU probably every 2 weeks. They're in regular communication with the business office and business administrator and the assistants. They receive all the invoice emails that you see. They're on those as well as another backup. And then they actually put quite a bit of time in, which people don't realize, in preparing for the audits. You know, and the auditors want to talk to them because it's another checks and balance on our system. Just like we have the 2 school board members who signed the manifest, and we have all our business procedures. Now you have this outside individual who's either appointed or elected who looks it over as well, and it just provides us another level. So we're looking for the board to approve increasing the salary for the co-op treasurer to $1,700 per year.
Great. So are there any questions on that?
Spending time and travel and everything else.
Yes.
It's not virtual.
No, if you think about just, you know, driving from Brookline to the SAU or from the outskirts of Hollis to the SAU, we're not giving you anything for your mileage. This covers your mileage and everything.
Sure. Has the Hollis district approved this yet?
Yep.
They have, so we're the last district.
Brookline.
Brookline
Brookline.
was the last one.
The SAU did.
Oh, okay.
SAU, Brookline, and
They haven't had their meeting yet.
Okay.
Okay, so I need a motion to increase the stipend paid to the district treasurer from $1,000 to $1,700 effective November 1st, 2023, to include a 3-year review process.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Rob, seconded by Beth. All those in favor? 6-0, motion carries. Okay, next up is second reading of JLCF, Wellness. So I need a motion to accept the second reading of policy. Okay, wait, before I do that, there were no changes, Gina, right, between first and second read? Do we want to do, there were no changes, right, Krista? Do we want to do second, waive third, and adopt? Is that too much for this one?
Are you good with that, though?
It's Gina's.
The only thing that I would caution, I mean, as much as I'd love to be done with the policy, is when we adopt this, we're going to have to rescind ECF.
Okay, so let's just do second.
And we don't have that in the
Okay,
packet,
all right, so we'll just do second. So I need a motion to accept the second reading of policy JLCF, Wellness.
So moved.
Moved by Beth, I need a second.
Second.
Second by Cindy. Okay, we did not make any changes. Go ahead, Gina. Is there anything to
no
speak to? There's no change to it. So,
Was there anything that you were asked to consider changing? I mean, is this just more exposure or?
It's just more exposure.
More exposure.
Okay.
yeah, no. I don't think we went back to policy and we didn't have anything to review on it, so. Okay, all in favor of second read? Okay, 6-0, motion carries. Okay, since we were reviewing JJB, so I just need a motion to accept first read of policy JJB, interscholastic athletics, as presented.
So moved.
Moved by Beth.
Second.
Second by Rob, sorry, my brain. I'll just speak to this one. Since we were taking a look at that when we were talking about it, we noticed that it did not include the fact that we work with Tri-County Association, so we added them into our policy because we do work with them, and that was the only change we made. So if there are any questions on that, if not, we'll just approve it for second read and we'll bring it back maybe for second, waive third, and adopt next month. Any questions or comments? Okay, all in favor? 6-0, motion carries. First read on that one.
Just, not so much discussion, but I was just curious, adopted by the superintendent and the principal, do you want to have pluralized principals since there are multiples involved in the process?
Sure, we'll change
Bring that back.
We'll bring that back next month with the extra S. We'll fix it. With the S.
Substantial
Did you know
change.
that? Yeah, okay.
Very
Great.
substantial.
All right. So then the next ones are all
First reads.
first reads, and I need a motion to accept the first reading of policy AC, non-discrimination, equal opportunity, employment, and district anti-discrimination plan.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Rob, seconded by Beth. Do you want to speak to this,
I
Gina?
would love to. Okay, so if you take a look
Liar.
at, although we just reviewed this May of 2022, we thought we'd bring it back again. So some of the changes where we are identifying new policies that are related to this policy AC, and we are removing the timeline components of section F. This was on the advice of our actual legal counsel, not New Hampshire School Board Association. They've requested us to do so. We went ahead and moved this forward in Hollis and Brookline already. Essentially, the timelines here are not accurate to the current law, and then you'll see in the next 4 policies that we'll bring forward, all of those items are covered in those additional policies.
So are we,
Non-discrimination,
Sure.
equal opportunity, et cetera. And so our policy had an outdated timeline. And so we're removing the timeline from this policy, but in doing so, I can, when we get to the other ones, I'll explain why we're bringing forward 4 additional ones.
okay.
So, in the removal of F, you're taking out the issue of someone witnessing, you're taking out the information about investigation and reporting. Is that because we're going to see that those elements are in the other ones?
Absolutely, yep.
Okay. So it's, okay.
All those in favor? First read?
Thank you.
0. All right. So ACAA, I need a motion to accept the first reading of policy ACAA, harassment and sexual harassment of students.
So moved.
Moved by Beth.
Second.
Second by Rob.
Okay.
Gina?
Yep. So this is one of those policies, as I mentioned. If you recall back to AC, there's a strike through of policy GBAA. Once these are adopted, I will be requesting that we rescind policy GBAA. Essentially, it's harassment and sexual harassment of students. What we're doing is we're moving our policy to the A section because those are foundational beliefs, and we want to make sure those are at the forefront of what we do as a district. So we don't want to have any of these policies like hidden, if you will, deep within the section. So
What is
A,
section G?
was that G is students, and then J is, I had that reversed. J is students and G is employees. So for the students one, that's JBAA, that was our old one that is outdated. I am requesting that we adopt this new one with updated language that comes directly from our attorneys, once again, not New Hampshire School Board Association, but those who are our legal counsel. So this really just goes through those definitions of what constitutes sexual harassment, harassment, Title IX, other forms of harassment, and then reports and complaints. So to your point, that's covered here.
Was there conflict between the NHSBA template and what our attorneys are recommending?
This is more explicit, and as I mentioned, it brings it to the forefront by putting it in the A section.
But there's no contradiction.
No.
Okay, any other questions? All those in favor? 6-0. All right, now we're up to ACCA.
ACAAR.
ACAAR, so okay, I need a motion to accept the first reading of ACAA-R, student discrimination / harassment, and Title IX sexual harassment complaint procedures.
So moved.
Moved by Rob, second by Beth.
Okay, so this is where the good reading comes in with this quick read of a policy. So typically, we don't bring our regulations forward. We don't require that as part of our board, but we felt it would be important for us to do so to make sure we're all fully aware of this. This right here tells you, okay, if you look at ACAA, then this would include all the regulations, the timelines, the legal components of how to file a complaint and what the procedures are. One important reason why it's so important that we have this in the forefront, and then I'm bringing this for a reading and an adoption, is because if we are engaged in a Title IX investigation, it's going to take 60 days, not because we're not moving quickly, not because we're not responding appropriately, but because the legal timelines that are put in place require that it take that many days. And so this, as I mentioned, just goes through all the different components step by step of what families and staff can expect.
And this also was written by our legal
This
counsel?
was also written by our legal counsel.
Word for word?
Word for word. And we were asked to not make any changes.
I question whether, did you have a motion to approve this?
Yeah, Rob and then Beth second.
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought we don't approve regulations.
We typically don't, but
But
our
we
legal
can.
counsel has advised us to, and we're able to. But we don't
But
have a
but
policy
does
saying
that-
we must.
Will that mean that if you need to make a change, you will have to approve the change?
Correct. And you will see that this will come before you in a few months, as the expectation is any day. We'll come out with recommendations in terms of how we're going to change this
So we'll be
regulation.
revisiting this again?
Yep.
And
Okay.
also, hopefully we don't have a new director of student services or anything anytime soon, but name is listed, like specific names and stuff, so we don't always do that either, but that's
Or even if
something
there's a
they
title
recommend.
change on the individual?
Correct.
Can you check into whether or not us approving this requires all future changes to be approved? Because as a
Oh, as
regulation, I'd
precedent.
like you to be able to make administrative changes for technicalities and things like that.
Right,
without
like
coming-
non-substantive, non-substantive.
I just want to make sure we're not,
Substantive.
we're not shooting
Thank
ourselves
you.
in
You
the
can say
foot
it.
by going through this process.
Cue me, I'll jump in.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point, Tom. Like a title change or a name change, for example. Yeah, that would make sense. Okay, so all those in favor of the first read?
She's so
6-0.
conflicted.
Okay, so that was ACAA-R.
Well, we can always rescind approval if,
Well, it's only first read. You don't have to vote next time.
no, I'm just saying, the
Right.
fact that we've started the process,
Right.
I don't
Right,
know
I
if
gotcha.
If it's a one-way street.
Okay, so I need a motion to accept the first reading of policy ACAB, harassment and sexual harassment of school employees.
So moved.
Moved by Rob, second by Beth.
Okay, so this looks very similar to ACAA. The difference here is this is for employees. So this is the one that would be in place of GBAA once it's approved and in place. So this is really just the definitions.
Okay. Any comments? All those in favor?
Thank you.
6-0. And now we need a motion to accept the first reading of ACAB-R, Employee Discrimination, Harassment, and Title IX, Sexual Harassment Complaint Procedures.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Rob, second by Beth. I assume it's the same sort of, it's the same thing, right?
Yep, so this is the regulations related to employee discrimination and harassment. And so just to clarify, everything is filtered through Lauren as our Human Rights Officer and Title IX Coordinator, but employees would then be further filtered to HR, but it all begins with one individual, her legal counsel.
Okay.
Gina, you said that these are the things that dictate the timeline. I'm just curious, where are I'm not readily
Yeah.
seeing.
Yep,
Hi.
so for example,
We rallied.
so like if you look in section C, I just saw something. Oh, okay, so there's section B, part 10, the investigation shall be completed within 40 days. And then if you go on to C with findings, so you have the findings, and you have to inform the complainant and the respondent in writing, and then they're given, they have 5 days for an
Okay, so it's
appeal.
buried into it. It isn't like the
Correct.
timeline
Yeah,
is
it's like
mapped out.
10-day increments, 5-day increments, there's.
Okay, no, I was looking for a section that said this is the sequence of a.
Oh,
and
no.
I didn't see that.
Well, I mean, there are sequences, but it doesn't say like,
Yeah,
5
it's
days,
not
4 days.
easy to figure out just by
Right.
looking at it. You have to really read it in depth to get all of the elements.
All right, all those in favor, first read of this one? 6-0, motion carries. Great.
Are we allowed to ask a question though beyond, even though we approved it?
Yeah, sure. I'm so easy.
Would our lawyers allow you to put either a summary or an overview timeline that gives you an easy place to show to someone? You know what I'm saying?
I would venture to guess no, but I'm going to pass that over to our human rights officer.
Oh, sure. So probably not, but I think also because we do know that likely by the end of this month, there's going to be changes to this procedure. I think that would be a question that we can ask as we are going to be moving to.
Because
that new
for all the
process.
purposes you said, if right in a prominent place, it shows this is how things proceed, it would perhaps ease your task of convincing someone that we're not dragging our feet.
True, and, but the first step in the process when there is a complaint is a meeting with me where the first thing that I do is outline exactly
Okay.
what those timelines are and those pieces are, and that is a part of the process.
Okay, thank
So
you.
that's another aspect that we can look at.
Thank you very much. All right, so I need a report out from the process observer. I have a reason why I haven't dismissed you guys. I just
Precisely
wanted
at
you to know.
8:30.
Yeah.
Precisely.
I need you at the end of this meeting,
Here,
so.
you have to quit talking so that we can be on time.
Sure.
Yeah. You're stealing victory.
That was the fastest policy I think we've ever done in our lives. But I think we had some, we had some extended conversations with the principals, which I thought was very valuable tonight, so we did well.
Okay.
Thank you, Cindy, for prepping us of what was to come as well. That was helpful.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Okay, so we're going to move to a non-public session, and then we're going to have a non-meeting.
We are having a non-public?
We have a quick non-public,
Okay.
but I don't think the principals need to be in the non-public, but they need to be in the non-meeting. So I need a motion that the board by roll call go into non-public session pursuant to RSA 91-A:32A, the dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee.
So moved.
Moved by Rob, second by Beth. I need a roll call.
Tom, aye.
Krista, aye.
Holly, aye.
Rob, aye.
Beth, aye.
Cindy, aye.
So that would be 8:31. So we'll be in non-public, which we'll go over there.